Hi, welcome to American Reversion. I'm Steve Smith. In any battle or war, understanding your enemy is one of the most important elements. We're in a war now. We're in many battles for a big war, for the reclaiming of our country, a reversion to the America that once was or should have been, just like the title of this channel indicates. And many of our people, as I've said before, do not understand the enemy. I think that most people, even who think they do, may not. The main enemy, as we're seeing now, is a decline, what most people call socialism, that they've hidden behind the term progressivism, through socialism, and finally to a destination of full communism. Now, just by saying that, many people will be scared off because they don't want to. They think that that's inflammatory rhetoric. It's not. Or they think that they don't fully understand it, or they think that it couldn't happen here, and both of those are a mistake. Today I want to read the agenda, the list set out in this book that I mentioned the other day, The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen. It's the list, the agenda, as laid out by the Communist Party of what they want to accomplish here in our country. First, though, I want to read something that Dwight Eisenhower said, and it gives us a direction of understanding. If we remember, it was Washington who warned us first about the creation of political parties, warning that as they developed power, people would have a tendency to become more loyal to their party than they did their country. We've seen that happen, certainly everybody knows that. But Dwight Eisenhower, who gave us another one of the greatest warnings, and that was the warning against the military-industrial complex, and now I would extend that to the military healthcare industrial complex, gave us a warning on top of Washington's. And that was, he said, if a political party does not have its foundation in the determination to advance a cause that is right and is moral, then it is not a political party. It is merely a conspiracy to seize power. Okay. Well, if we haven't seen it before, we've certainly seen it a lot in the last few days. And an understanding that what we consider to be a political party is, in fact, simply an organism to seize power over our country. And a lot of it's through the ignorance of too many of our people. I'm going to start here. I just want to read an introductory, and I think you all will find this fascinating, illuminating, disappointing, angering, many different things. But I think that as we develop our ability to, in order, I should say, to develop our ability to respond against the forces coming at us and to convince those who don't understand the realities, we have to increase our understanding of some of these things, and this will help. The biggest mistake, and again, this is from the book, The Naked Communist, talking about the importance of the psychological war. This is an introductory to the list, and you're going to want to hear the list. The biggest mistake of the West has been allowing itself to drift into a state of mental stagnation, apathy, and inaction. That's the truth. In some circles, motivations of patriotism, loyalty, and the traditional dream of freedom for all men have been lying dormant or have been paralyzed by a new kind of strange thinking. Authorities say there is an urgent need for the revolutionary change in our state of mind. That's true. What is wrong with our state of mind? First and foremost, we have been thinking the way the communists want us to think. Now, if realize it may not be you particularly, but we have to take a good hard look at ourselves while we're looking around at the people around us. Our founding fathers would be alarmed to learn, excuse me, my dry fingers, How confused many of our people have become over such fundamental problems as coexistence, disarmament, free trade, the United Nations, recognition of Red China, and a host of related problems. Instead of maintaining a state of intellectual vigilance, we have taken communist slogans as the major premise for too many of our conclusions. Let us go down a list of current strategy goals which the communists and their fellow travelers are seeking to achieve. These are all part of the campaign to soften America for the final takeover. It should be kept in mind that many loyal Americans are working for these same objectives because they are not aware that these objectives are designed to destroy us. Okay, now many people might say, well, if they're working for these objectives, they're not loyal Americans. Well, I think that that's an easy trap to fall into, but many people do consider themselves loyal Americans, but don't understand how these things that they're promoting really are designed to destroy us. So I'm going to read this whole list. At first, I was just going to read the highlights of the list, but as I read through the whole list again, I realized that every one of them is important. Some are going to jump out at you more than others, but and latch onto those, because I would suggest that knowing a few of these things will better arm you as you talk to people who we need to convince. Remember, this is still a war of ideas and ideals. We are still in a position, I think, that whether we can, at least we need to try to turn things around. And I think if enough of us try, we can. So we have to arm ourselves with knowledge. Okay, I'm going to start on this. Current communist goals. There's 45 of them. Number 1, U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. Okay, that's because of our superiority. They want to keep us locked in. Number 2, U.S. willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. Number 3, develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. How many Americans have you heard say that? Okay, well, if we just get rid of all of our atomic weapons, that will show good faith to the world. And then, of course, because they're all good people, they will do it as well, and we'll all be safe from atomic war. Well, that was put into the national brain by the communists. Americans used to be a people who would stand up and fight. Now they want to capitulate. Not all of us, but too many want to capitulate. Permit free trade between all nations regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. This is dual use, okay? And they want free trade because we produce so much, or if we don't produce it for them, we invent it, or we make it better, or we buy their junk, where we used to make our own stuff. Extension of long-term loans to Soviet and Soviet satellites. Yes, we finance our enemies. We give them loans. We send them wheat. We send it under the auspices that it's going to be better for our farmers, when actually we could be self-sufficient if we just were determined to be. Provide American aid to all nations regardless of communist domination. If you don't know all of the communist countries or communist-controlled countries around the world that we send foreign aid to, it'd blow your mind. It'd do well to go out there and get a list. And I bet somebody here, and I invite anybody, put down in the comment, I'm not going to do it here, make this too long of a video. Put down in the comments sources for this. Feel free to do that. Feel free to leave links down here. That's fine at this point. Grant recognition of Red China, admission of China to the UN. Set up East and West Germany to separate as separate states, in spite of Khrushchev's promise in 1955 to settle the Germany question by free elections under supervision of the UN. Well, it was set up as East and West Germany for a long time until reunification. Prolong the conferences to ban atomic tests because the U.S. has agreed to suspend tests as long as negotiations are in progress. Many of you might not remember how well that worked against us. That's kind of in the past, but we're getting to stuff now that you're going to see hitting home currently. 10. Allow all Soviet satellites individual representation in the UN. Well, that gives the UN, which I'm not a fan of, greater power. 11. Promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one-world government with its own independent armed forces. Well, they do, don't they? Some communist leaders believe the world can be taken over as easily by the UN as by Moscow. I'd agree with them. Sometimes these two centers compete with each other, as they are now doing in the Congo. Yeah, that had to do back. I remember way back in the early 60s, we were visiting some of my aunts down in San Angelo and Lubbock. And we went to church one day, and after we got out of church, we went to a restaurant, a diner, for Sunday dinner. And we walked in, and it had a place with these little paper placemats, in front of you. That used to be a thing. And one of my aunts looked down there and saw that, and she stood up and said, "We are leaving." And we didn't know exactly what was going on, but as we got outside, she turned and explained that the placemat had placemats had maps of the world, of the different countries around the world, all around the border of the placemat. And she said that placemat had a flag of the United Nations. I'm not eating there. Well, she understood. Okay. 12. Resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. That's right. You remember back, and there, if you're not familiar with Joseph McCarthy, who was a senator, he's sometimes misidentified as being a part of that House Committee on Un-American Activities. It was people who accuse other people of McCarthyism don't understand what they're talking about. But he had led a push to uproot and outlaw communism here in the, well, maybe not outlaw, but fighting against the communism and the growing Communist Party and the communist influence in Hollywood and the media and such. And so they knew the danger. And of course, McCarthy was just ridiculed, and now his name ranks out there amongst the unknowing as one of the worst people that there's ever been. And if the left wants to shut you down, they'll just call you a McCarthyite, and of course they're doing far worse. So again, resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. Do away with all loyalty oaths. 14. Continue giving Russia access to the U.S. Patent Office. 15. Capture one or both. Now listen to this one. Capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. Well, I'd say that they've captured at least 1.5, wouldn't you? 16. Use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. Get control of the schools. Here we go. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Yes, right, soften the curriculum. You remember that many years ago the Bible used to be used. Now, it's been before my time, but the Bible was one of the original textbooks from which kids learned to read. And do you remember that people my age would stand, and my kids still do, for the Pledge of Allegiance, and that they include under God? Well, that has changed a great deal across the country. So they soften the curriculum. They teach strange types of math nowadays to so-called teach kids to think instead of understanding that 3 times 3 is simply 9, Get control of teachers' associations. Put the party line in textbooks. And if you have read textbooks in the last 30 years, you see that they have been successful and are becoming more successful every year. 18. Gain control of all student newspapers. 19. And there are student newspapers in the heartland and the South and many rural areas that aren't like this, but read a student newspaper from a big university and you'd think you were reading Pravda. 19. Use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. 20. Infiltrate the press. Well, I guess they've got that done, haven't they? get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, and policy-making positions. We once had a burgeoning counter movement on that, beginning beginning far back with what was the name of that? John Birch Society. Rush Limbaugh started. He changed things so much in 1988 with his show, and then other conservative media outlets were able to build on that. We've seen kind of a crumbling of that here recently. There's some new ones out there that are trying to take over, and I suggest that everybody. Matter of fact, instead of me coming on here and telling you what I think are good, how about you all put down in the comments what media outlets are good, because there's a lot of them coming out. So go ahead and put down in there in the comments which ones you watch or which ones you think are good. That'd be great for everybody else to see. And I would insert here. I don't think that I said at the beginning of this, but share this video, like it, subscribe, and share it and participate and get this around to as many. So not just hearing me talk, but that more people can contribute to what we want to do here. Okay, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Yeah, they've done that. 22, continued discrediting American culture by degrading all forms. Now listen to this. This is brilliant, and they've accomplished it. Continued discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to, quote, eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings, substitute shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms. Well, I don't know what it's like where you live, but in this city around here and even out in the suburbs, half the stuff that's standing in parks under the name of art looks like it's junk that fell off the back of a truck. It's horrible. It's ugly. We used to, when I was a kid, I remember great pieces of art and sculptures. And now, if it's not ugly, it's just ridiculous. 23, control art critics and directors of art museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. Now, those of us who think like we do would never even consider these kinds of things. But the communist mind is, they're not stupid. They're smart and they're devious. They know the emotional impact of different things on people, and that's what they attack. 24, eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. Do you remember all that art by Mapplethorpe? And remember the person that suspended the crucifix in a bottle of urine? I'm not even going to say what they called it. Remember all that? And it's still going on. They called it art, and it was lauded by the left. 25, break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. Well, they've done that. Watching the average, and I don't watch TV, but I know you can go on TV and watch things you used to have to go into a dark theater downtown to see. 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Well, not just that, but they have set it up to not just be accepted, but to be celebrated. 27, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with so-called social religion. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. And they've done that. 28, eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principle of, quote, separation of church and state. Well, we know that there is no such thing as separation of church and state. That phrase was used in a letter that Thomas Jefferson sent to the Danbury Baptist Church, and that the First Amendment protections have nothing to do with that. It simply prohibited the establishment of a national religion. Okay. While we're reading through these, think how well the other side has accomplished their goals, and think how poorly we have. Discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. 30. Discredit the American Founding Fathers. Present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the, quote, common man. 31. Belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of, quote, the big picture. Give more emphasis to Russian history since the communists took over. And I might say all of the third world countries as well. Number 32, support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. 33, eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. 34, eliminate the House Committee on Un-American Activities. I mentioned that earlier. 35, discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. Well, have they been discredited lately? Yes, they have. It makes you wonder if some of those people that were responsible for some of those things, well, it doesn't make me wonder, I know. And not just the FBI, other agencies. 36, infiltrate and gain control of more unions. 37, infiltrate and gain control of big business. Well, what big businesses are we seeing now that are squashing public opinion? 38. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Did you know that the Social Security Administration has SWAT teams? Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders, which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. My friends in the healthcare delivery system tell me that I would be amazed if I knew how many children out there today, and by that I mean up to 18, are on psych drugs and attempted suicide. 39. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. 40. Discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Remember, these aren't things that we are worried about. This is the plan set down by the Communist Party and movement in our country. So it's not like, oh, you're worried about this stuff. Hey, they wrote down their plan. If we don't read it, the fault's on us. So let me read that last one again, just to keep on going. Discredit the family as an institution. I guess they've done that, haven't they? Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Remember that back one of the founding planks of the Black Lives Matter organization, not the movement, which was started by those two women whose names I forget, but they were self-professed trained Marxist agitators, and one of their planks of that organization was the destruction of the nuclear family. Okay. 41. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of parents. It takes a village. Yeah. A village of communists. 42. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition, that students and special interest groups should rise up and use, quote, united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. Well, we've seen here in the last year that they do that just fine as long as it's their side doing it, right? As long as it's their side doing it, it is a quest for social justice and an understandable rage and uprising against an historic and formalized oppression. But if if we do it, you know. Overthrow all colonial governments before native populations are ready for full government. Now, what this has to do a lot with Africa. And many of the governments in Africa were still under colonial rule from European countries. And what they wanted was to outlaw those, and which they did, because the Soviets were ready to go in there. And as a result, if you just look at the political atmosphere of of Africa, it is, and parts of South America, it is rife with Soviet or communist influence, if not outright governments. 44, internationalize the Panama Canal. Thank you, Jimmy Carter. 45, repeal the Connolly Reservation to the U.S. so the U.S. cannot prevent the World Court from seizing jurisdiction over domestic problems. See, we have the Connolly Reservation, so that it says the World Court can't come in and take over our system. They want for that to be repealed so that we cannot prevent the World Court from seizing jurisdiction over American problems. That means our problems here. Give the World Court jurisdiction over nations and individuals alike. So if they got a problem with you, I'm sorry, you're not going to be dealing with your local court or your local government or even the government of the United States. No, you're going to be thrown into the World Court and judged by the world. Okay, that was a lot to take in. Again, that was from The Naked Communist. A lot in that book. I recommended that the other day. I recommended that everybody get a copy of that and the Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals, because this teaches us how they go about things. And if we don't understand it, we're not going to know. Okay, thank you for that. I hope that you will share this. Send it around to everyone you know, because it's a good starting point to educate ourselves as to the nature of our enemy. And I think too few of us really do. Tomorrow will be Freedom Friday. I do want to say, I've had some people ask about a Patreon addition to this channel. So I have put it up. I know that last week I started putting the first of what will be a Freedom Friday. I had to put it over on the Integrative Preparedness Patreon page because I didn't have one here, and I don't want to post those things directly to this page. So I have put up a Patreon page. I don't really know right now. I'm not going to put the link down here. It is for anybody who wants to support this. That's one of the reasons that I put it up, but I also put it up as kind of an aggregator that I will be putting up each Friday. And last week's was Constitution 101, given by Larry Arnn of Hillsdale College. And we'll be following along with that. And there is so much material out there that would be good for everyone to familiarize themselves with. And then, more than familiarize yourself, really learn. It's going to arm you in the fight against what's going on in our country. So I'll say more about that. I guess you can it's probably patreon.com/American Reversion, I would guess. I'm not really ready for that, but I've set it up. I've already put a bunch of stuff up over there if you want to see it. It's going to be kind of an aggregator. It's going to be a place that I am going to put up a lot of things that will act as a resource for you, political, social, all sorts of things, historical, that I think you'll enjoy, I think you'll like. So again, I hope that you will spread this around to your friends. Like I say, America needs a reversion. It needs you to be a part of it, but it needs as many others to be a part of it as possible. So please be the one that spreads this around and gets more people in tune. Because the more of us that are on, we need to be on the same page. The other side is. Okay. You all have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.